Trin Jha always thought he was already dead, just mechanically going through his daily routine of working, eating, sleeping, and waking up without knowing the meaning of his life. He found no purpose in the chubby, wrinkled face of his supervisor or in fleeting interactions with office girls at bars, and certainly not in the steel jungle of the modern city. Trin Jha felt as if he was rotting away, slowly decomposing since the age of 24, decaying until he would turn into mere soil, leaving behind only a name. No, not even a name, because nobody would remember him. A minor office worker, insignificant no matter who he was, merely a speck of dust in life. He wanted to change, to find his own meaning. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you really want to live? Today, when Trin Jha arrived at the office and booted up his computer, this question appeared on the screen. He thought it was just a hacker's joke. Whether he clicked yes or no, he believed his computer would get infected with a virus, so he decided to reboot it. However, as the cursor moved towards the answer, his intuition suddenly kicked in, and he hesitated. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you really want to live? Trin Jha was truly bewildered. A mysterious allure made his index finger click yes, and he immediately lost consciousness. Cold, shaking. Trin Jha woke up abruptly, terrified, looking around. The office environment and surroundings blended together, but only for a few seconds before the confusion dissipated. Not bad. You're the most promising one this time. A cold voice sounded. Trin Jha turned and saw a young man with black hair smiling faintly at him. The man, in his mid-20s, appeared quite ordinary except for several terrifying scars on his face. Holding a cigarette, he took a puff, then shifted his gaze behind Trin Jha, where he now noticed 5 other dazed individuals, 3 men and 2 women, and beyond them, about 15 foreigners. They were all in a rapidly moving train car, the cold, shaking sensation caused by the car's motion. Where is this? Who are you? Why am I here? Since there were foreigners, Trin Jha asked in English. The foreigners merely turned their heads to look, then looked away, except for the black-haired young man who took a deep breath and said, Think it over carefully. It's all been imprinted in your brains by now. Trying to recall, Trin Jha only remembered seeing the message. Do you want to understand the meaning of life? Do you really want to live? He pressed yes and lost consciousness. Wait a minute. Survival in life? This was a game. Who created it is unknown. Perhaps gods, perhaps demons, maybe aliens or people from the future. And he was now a participant. When someone in modern life feels lost, vague, they could be transported to the world of horror movies if they choose yes. This is Resident Evil 1, rookie. Congratulations, your first time is in a relatively easy setting. Even if you die, it will be peaceful. The young man snuffed out his cigarette, his voice harsh with laughter. Are you saying we've just entered the computer in consciousness like in a fantasy novel, and after playing we can go back? A chubby man next to Trin Jha suddenly asked. The young man pulled out a Desert Eagle, checked the clip, spun it in his hand, and replied, I don't know about consciousness, but you will feel pain, you will get injured, you will die, and you're wrong. After each movie ends, you'll move on to another. Might have seen it, might not have. The master keeps bringing new people to replace those who died before. Each session usually involves 7 to 20 people. In other words, this time it's relatively easy, so we only have 7. The chubby man chuckled lightly. How can you be sure those who died don't return to their bodies? Maybe they chose to die without knowing. The black-haired young man suddenly stood up, his eyes flashing coldly, and in an instant, he was on top of the chubby man, the gun barrel shoved into the chubby man's mouth. Do you want to try dying? Want to see what endless terror is like? I've been through 3 movies. The first was Nightmare on Elm Street 1. A total of 15 newcomers joined. 2 had been through 2 movies before. Do you know what happened? Everyone died in their dreams. Only me and another survived. Do you know what it feels like to be killed by a bizarre dream? What it feels like when your surroundings turn into a pile of mush but still moving? How does it feel to be in a dark factory being sliced by Freddy's knife, piece by piece? Do you really want to die, you piece of trash? The young man yelled furiously. The chubby man was terrified, unable to beg due to the gun in his mouth. It took a while for Trin Jha and the others to persuade the two to separate. The young man stood up, returned to the corner, wiped his gun, and said, Dying in the movie means real death. And if tormented to death by demons, your deaths will be very miserable. If you don't have the courage to continue, then kill yourself for peace." A bespectacled woman said, "So we have no chance of returning to our bodies anymore?" The young man glanced at her and replied, "I've said before, you're not just here in consciousness. What technology could create such a game? Only gods, we are just worms thrown here, writhing for their amusement. Both body and spirit of ours have entered here. There's no going back. At least I think there's no way back." The bespectacled woman, maintaining her composure, gently said, "Listening to you, it seems like there might still be hope of returning." The young man glanced at the woman, smirked, and said, "This batch of rookies seems quite promising indeed, correct? There is hope of returning." Everyone held their breath, listening intently, staring at the young man. "For every mission you complete and return, you will be rewarded with 1,000 points, which can be exchanged for many things, such as living another 100 days in this movie, for example." A middle-aged man next to the bespectacled woman exclaimed, "Are you crazy wanting to live in a horror movie?" The young man just smiled faintly without replying, but the bespectacled woman stroked her forehead and said, "No, I think I understand now. Horror movies come in many types. Like this one is a science fiction type. No demons, except in the movie's plot. Other places might be normal." The young man snapped his fingers and replied, "Exactly. You can live normally for 100 days in quiet places. Just imagine how happy it would be after surviving dangerous movies to live 100 normal days." Trin Jha was startled. He seemed to understand the purpose of this place, because his everyday life was so mundane it felt rotten. But if he continuously went through dangers, a mundane life would become incredibly precious. Apart from being able to exchange days of peaceful living, 1,000 points can be exchanged for many things, like this Desert Eagle with unlimited ammunition, which only costs 100 points. Besides, you can enhance 6 body categories like mental power, spiritual power, cell vitality, immune strength, muscle strength, and nervous reflexes. The average person scores 100 in each category. Every 10 reward points can raise 1 attribute point. In other words, if you survive and return, you could make yourself twice as strong. If you survive through 100 movies, you could become a superhero. The bespectacled woman calmly asked, "So how many points do we need to return to normal life?" 50,000 points, the young man replied as he lit another cigarette. "You just need to survive 50 movies without spending any, and you can go back." Everyone fell silent, realizing that surviving 50 movies without any enhancements was nearly an impossible mission. Of course, those 1,000 points are just the basic reward. You can earn more. For instance, every time someone like me explains the rules to the new recruits, they get an additional 100 points. Also, you've all noticed you're wearing a strange watch, right? The young man raised his left hand, displaying a classic-styled metal watch. Everyone looked at their own hands. Each person's watch showed a countdown of 3 hours and 1 minute, with various statistics such as new recruits, zombies, lickers, etc., listed below. Killing 10 zombies earns you 1 point, a licker 100 points. Killing a new recruit. 1,000 points, the young man said, glancing ominously at the new recruits, though only Trin Jha and the bespectacled girl looked back calmly. "Of course it's minus 1,000 points." The young man smirked, looking at Trin Jha and the bespectacled girl, then spoke. "All right, ask anything you want quickly. The movie is about to start." The bespectacled girl looked at Trin Jha. He nodded slightly and she spoke. "There's something else. This movie is Resident Evil 1. The T-virus is spreading in Raccoon City. If we sit in this car and leave, doesn't that seem too easy?" The young man nodded and responded, "Check the watch. There's a name. Read it out." "Matt Anderson." Everyone read it simultaneously. Then, among the foreigners, a black man suddenly glowed. Shortly after, the light disappeared. He's the mercenary team leader in the movie. This movie takes place within a confined space, only within the hive. To limit the difficulty, the master has decreed we can't go far from the plot area. If we stray more than 100 meters from Anderson, boom, everything ends. Understand? Once Anderson dies, the restriction will transfer to another character. So we just need to try and survive, that's all. Trin Jha suddenly asked, "What exactly is the master? I notice you mention this name often." "The master is what manages our entry here, handling points and item exchanges. It's a sphere of light, honestly. I don't know much more than that," the young man explained, waving his hand dismissively. "One last question? What does this countdown mean?" the bespectacled girl asked. "It's the time you have to spend in this movie. Once it's up, you'll return to the master to claim your rewards and then join another movie," the young man replied, taking a drag from his cigarette. Just then, the train car began to slow down. The young man finished his cigarette, pulled out his gun, and announced, "All right, the plot starts now. From this moment, they can hear our conversations. Revealing the plot or information about the master will result in a deduction of points, 10 per statement, subtracted from your future rewards. So, watch your mouths." The train car gradually stopped, and the mercenaries carefully stood up and disembarked, weapons ready. The young man with black hair also confidently stepped out, followed by the bespectacled girl who glanced at Trin Jha and the others before continuing. Noticing Anderson was moving away, they hurriedly followed. Standing on a wide platform, Trin Jha tried to recall the movie's details. This place was the entrance to the Hive, the underground laboratory. Everyone proceeded towards a steel door at the end of the platform, which bore the Umbrella Corporation logo and a hazard sign. Trin Jha and everyone else approached the door, and suddenly a very beautiful girl wearing a red dress turned to ask Anderson, "I want to know who you people are? What's happening here?" Anderson turned to look at the girl, signaling the mercenaries to start unpacking and setting up equipment, then personally answered, "We are hired by the Umbrella Corporation, and so are you. This is the entrance to the Hive, and you are listed as a security personnel, so we are bringing you along." Trin Jha remembered this scene was where the main character Alice asked Anderson about the incident's cause. Although he had seen the movie several times, participating in it firsthand still felt surreal and unbelievable. Alice listened to the reply, her face puzzled, touching the wedding ring on her finger, and asked, in a daze, "What's this?" Anderson coldly replied, "You are not married. This ring is just for protection. It also signifies your status as a security staff member." "What is the Hive?" Beside her, a man who was not a mercenary asked, and Trin Jha recognized him as the reason for the entire incident, the thief of the T-virus, a corporate spy named Sion, who was also a main character. Matt Anderson told another mercenary, "Show them!" The man nodded, turned a computer screen towards everyone, displaying a three-dimensional map of the entire structure. "This is the entrance to the Hive, an underground laboratory in Raccoon City. This is where we found you. We traveled by subway from there to here." The screen continuously changed 3D images, eventually displaying a structure resembling a honeycomb. "This is the Hive, a top-secret research facility of the Umbrella Corporation with over 500 research staff. The research content is very important to the company, highly confidential. We don't know the details. We track everyone through thermal imaging displayed on this screen." Anderson continued explaining. While the screen showed the current position of everyone, the platform's 3D layout appeared on top of the honeycomb. Trin Jha knew that at this moment, the place was absolutely safe, but soon, it would turn into death's domain. "Who are they?" Alice suddenly pointed towards Trin Jha's group. Trin Jha's group was startled. They thought they were just objective characters not related to the plot, merely needing to dodge the monsters in the movie. Unexpectedly, Alice pointed at them. Matt Anderson answered, "They are Hive's security staff, registered on the company's list, though I believe there's been a misunderstanding. Except for that yellow-skinned guy who seems like a fighter, the rest are just ordinary civilians." Trin Jha's group immediately understood that this was an identity arranged by the master. Sion suddenly asked, "Why have I lost my memory? I can't remember anything." The Hive has an independent defense system controlled by the central computer, the Red Queen. In case of an emergency or an intrusion, it releases a neurotoxin gas causing everyone to faint for 4 hours. Upon awakening, there are some side effects, memory loss being one of them, Anderson explained. Sion further inquired, "How long does the memory loss last?" "It varies from person to person, from 1 hour to a week." Another man, not a mercenary, asked, "Does that mean the Hive was attacked, including by terrorists?" "Possibly worse." Trin Jha also recognized this young man. He was mad, a fake policeman who came to the hive to find his sister, a research employee of the hive. Realizing the dangers of the T-virus, she tried to inform the government, teamed up with Alice to steal the T-virus, but before they could act, Scion released the virus, killing her, turning her into a zombie. Trin Jha felt grateful to God. As his previous life was so boring, he often watched movies, especially science fiction like this. Now familiar with the plot and developments, his chances of survival were higher. The main character couldn't die, as confirmed in both movies and novels. At that moment, a female soldier spoke up. "The door is open, sir, we can enter." Matt looked at Trin Jha's group, Psyhead, and led the mercenaries towards the door. The door slowly opened. Inside was pitch black. Anderson ordered, "JD." The infrared glasses-wearing mercenary hesitated before saying, "Truong Kiet." The young man with black hair, without a word, brandished his gun and boldly entered. Trin Jha believed Truong Kiet also understood the plot. As long as the Red Queen wasn't turned off, this area remained safe. But as soon as the computer was shut down, this place would become the territory of zombies and lickers. Quickly, Truong Kiet turned on the lights, and the area gradually lit up. Through the windows, you could see the blue sky, the streets. The mercenaries and everyone entered. A female mercenary examined the machinery and said, "The area is safe. The poison has dissipated." Trin Jha knew that the area was contaminated with the virus. Everyone had died and turned into zombies. Only their instincts to feed remained. After Scion stole the T-virus, he broke a vial here. The Red Queen, upon detection, locked all the doors and released poison gas, killing everyone. Now only they and the zombies, lickers, remained in the hive. It seemed that Resident Evil 1 was quite popular. The people around, including the bespectacled girl, leaned against the doorway looking out. They all knew this area was currently quite safe. Mad suddenly said, "These decorations are used to improve the underground work environment. No one likes facing the cold air of concrete and steel all day. Seeing sunlight, they feel like they're above ground." Trin Jha hesitated for a moment, then extended his hand. "Trin Jha? Maybe a guard here." Mad, not listed in the staff directory, was handcuffed by the mercenaries from the start. He chuckled bitterly. "I'm handcuffed so I can't shake your hand, and I seem to have forgotten my name too." Trin Jha smiled warmly at Mad, feeling a strong affinity for this young man, the most innocent character in the movie, who until the end protected Alice, and in the sequel fought to help Alice and her friends. On one side, Matt Anderson and the mercenaries opened the elevator door, but it was pitch black inside. A mercenary snapped a fluorescent light and threw it down. After a while, it was clear the elevator cable had snapped. Anyone inside was certainly dead. The mercenary told Matt, "Sir, it looks like we'll have to take the stairs." Matt's face paled. He turned back and announced, "Take the stairs, we'll reach the bottom in 10 minutes, everyone must follow." The physical condition of the mercenaries was unquestionable. Alice, having T-virus in her body, was far superior to the others. The author is mistaken here, at the start of Part 1. Alice wasn't infected yet. Scion and Mad weren't bad either. Truong Kiet had survived through 3 movies, even using a small portion of his reward points to enhance his physical condition. He was far superior to ordinary people. Of the remaining 6 people, Trin Jha, though a desk worker, often exercised at least once a week. He said that only good physical condition could handle the enthusiasm of the office girls. Therefore, his physical condition was slightly better than average. The bespectacled girl seemed frail, naturally weak, and being a woman she couldn't compare to men. But she was quite smart, initially clinging to Truong Kiet's coattails as he willingly bore part of her weight. Truong Kiet merely glanced and kept running. The fat man, around 27 or 28, his flesh jiggled with each running step, becoming slower with time. The middle-aged man seemed to be a manual laborer, running not fast but always keeping up with everyone, not falling behind. The middle-aged woman was even slower than the fat man, later merely dragging her feet. Finally, a teenage boy. Extremely ordinary in appearance, the kind that would disappear into a crowd instantly, his speed comparable to the middle-aged, keeping up with the group. Before long, the middle-aged woman and the fat man disappeared. Trin Jha suddenly heard Truong Kiet say. "Those two are out," he asked in surprise. "What do you mean those two are out?" Truong Kiet coldly laughed. "Who else but them? Don't take my words lightly. This isn't cinema. Straying 100 meters from Matt, they're definitely dead." Boom.